I think more and more the shopper marketing is going to be a bigger percentage of the media pie for whether you're a big or small brand. As at least if you're omnichannel, it's shopper marketing. I would even count Amazon media search, Walmart media search. That's shopper marketing. It's digital, but it's shopper marketing. I think more and more retailers will start to play nice in the sandbox, because they will start to, the wars between Facebook, Google, and shopper marketing, it will never end. And Google now launching a marketplace. They're now got a horse in the race, and it's so that'll be interesting to see. But I think retailers will start to, I think more and more CPGs will push for a holistic view of their consumer, and will go to their retailers to do it.
Aisha, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So I have a million questions for you, but before we start, you have a really incredible kind of dynamic resume. You've done some pretty amazing things, and especially being fairly young. So would love to just hear a little bit about your background and then what you're up to today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And yeah, I promise I can hold down a job, although it seems like it doesn't look like that from my resume. But I, typical millennial, unapologetic about it too. And I had the opportunity, I had a small business that right after college that I was running an e-com store where I sold digitally printed clothing. And Vistaprint put me out of business within a year, and they were selling the same thing for like $5. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go back to business school. I'm going to figure this out. And ended up out of business school going into, I was going into entrepreneurship. And the one place I didn't want to work was a large pharmaceutical company. And I ended up interning for Johnson & Johnson. And, actually the people who were recruiting were amazing. And I'm like, hey, it's just a summer internship. It's not a big deal. Ended up falling in love with the company and stayed there for 6 years. And it was, they didn't know quite what to do with me. And they were like, you have this e-com background. There's an e-com team that needs procurement help. And it was actually a procurement job in e-com. So really actually was started my career at J&J procuring e-commerce agencies, marketing, a lot of technology and IT, and really fell in love with the space and was like, hey, I want to do sales and marketing. I want to join that side. And I had a VP that took a chance on me because he's like, you're coming from a totally different department, but do a stretch project, see how it goes. I guess I didn't do so bad because he put me on the sales and marketing team. And from there, it's really been history. So really have stayed in this kind of P&L management, sales marketing for e-com for about 5 to 6 years now, I would say.
Okay.
And it's been great. So at J&J, I ran their Amazon beauty and personal care business. I set up their 1P, 3P hybrid strategy with my current employer, Pharmapacks. I ended up leaving J&J. I loved it, but really wanted to cut my teeth in D2C. And joined a cannabis company actually doing D2C for them. So a medical cannabis company in New York. Loved it. Nascent industry. So I decided to leave. I was a digital marketer where no one would take my money. And so I decided to go to an agency and really cut my teeth in the agency world. And to anyone out there who works in an agency, kudos to you. It was probably one of the most challenging 6 months that I've ever had in my career, but by far the most, some of the most rewarding. And I learned so much. I learned more in those 6 months. It was the most condensed learning experience of my entire career. So definitely recommend it for those out there. And loved it. I was at Publicis, and then Pharmapacks came calling, and I couldn't say no. So I'm currently the Chief Strategy Officer at Pharmapacks. So I manage growth initiatives, key growth initiatives across our enterprise.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a pretty incredible run that gives you just super interesting perspective from kind of all the different angles in our industry. So obviously you've done a ton of work with CPG. That's I'm sure been kind of the majority of your focus over your career. We've been in this dynamic for a while now where a lot of the big sort of traditional, household consumer brands have historically had a tough time on e-commerce for a number of reasons. Now, some certainly, I don't want to group them all, some are doing very well. But it's left kind of this window open for these disruptor or digitally native brands to come in and take probably a lot more share than they should be getting. Why is that? How do you see that dynamic?
I think that's a really good question. One of the biggest benefits to being in a large company is your size and your scale and your funding and your budgets. One of the biggest weaknesses of working for a large company is your size and your scale and your process.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really, coming from working at large CPGs as well as small brands. And I still consult with startup brands today. Honestly, to keep me on my feet is why I do that when I can find the time, and I love doing that. And what I realize is it's simply just a matter of ownership. And I think companies and CPGs are not struggling, but there's continuing to be the pendulum that swings of where does e-com sit? Is it sales? Is it marketing? Is it its own thing? Do we outsource it? What do we in-house? What do we give the agencies? There's this constant testing and learning. And as leaders change in CPG companies, as they often do, each leader has a different perspective. This should be in-house, this should be sales, this should be marketing. And so I think that healthy tension and healthy discussion of where does e-com really sit, it creates some swirl, and it creates, this idea of sometimes, right, you have a sales team, but your marketing assets are owned by marketing.
Sure.
So the startup brand, literally yesterday, I was like, hey, your SEO is not great, your title is terrible, and we just fixed it right then and there on the call. Whereas in the CPG world is, well, that title doesn't look pretty, or that title has too many, keywords in it, we don't really like it, or these assets and content need to be created by an agency that, we have a relationship with for 10 years. They've been our creative agency.
Sure.
So we need to have them do it. And they may not be as evolved in e-com as typical e-com content shop is. And so you're having to bring along some of your agencies at big CPGs into the world of e-com and kind of forcing them to evolve versus saying, okay, you know what, this isn't your expertise. I'm going to go with e-com shop. And maybe in the future, as you build your capabilities, we'll bring that scope to you later. That's not as easy as a conversation as it sounds. I also have coming from the procurement agency procurement side as well, these are long-standing relationships. And so that would be my answer, is I think it's just a matter of process and speed and the ability to really say, really have full ownership of everything in e-com. Really sitting in one team is really hard. And also for CPGs, you don't really want that either, because there needs to be a balance, because you don't want the rest of your organization to be right in 2008 and the rest of your teams in 2020 or beyond. So it becomes tough. You want to build that muscle everywhere. So probably that's why some of the smaller guys have an advantage there, to take advantage of trends and just make changes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's a really good explanation. I'm curious, are there just generally, when you look at kind of the big CPG landscape, what are some of the things, you don't have to name names, but what are some of the things that they're getting really right? I mean, what are some of the big CPG brands that you've worked with or working with now? What are they doing right on Amazon and on e-commerce?
That's a good question. You know what I would say is the one area is content. I think because of them, they come from, a lot of these CPGs have traditional backgrounds where they come, they may be 100-year-old or 80-year-old. And that was really like the era of true advertising, like beautiful, creative, like really thoughtful slogans and messaging and that brand equity. So the one thing CPGs continue to do, that even some startups who are, very hungry for, we just need to get this valuation, or we just need to get this, get this done, or we just need to, flip this company, whatever it is. Sometimes that gets lost and they just really delve into performance marketing. It can get really easy to be like performance. And the one thing CPGs have to their benefit a little bit is they do have this balance of performance, but also brand building. And so the one thing that I think is really nice is they push and continue to push all e-com retailers, not just Amazon, but Walmart, Target, and others, to have beautiful content, enhanced content, imagery, that they do that well. Now the iteration of it and getting, taking advantage of a trend or changing it and updating it may be challenging, but
Sure.
some of the most beautiful product pages you'll see on Amazon to this day still come from big CPGs.
Yeah.
And so I think they're still doing that really, really well. They really understand their brand equity and they want to protect that at all costs. I also think compliance, and they do really well too. So they will invest the dollars to kind of police the marketplace to make sure there's no counterfeit products. So, but content, especially, I would say, if I could say one thing they're doing especially well, it's content. I really love some of the brands out there, what they're doing.
Yeah, that's super interesting. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, clearly the activation of that content is different, but kind of that storytelling ability is something that a lot of these brands, built their brand on 60 years ago when they first started. It's obviously evolved, but that's clearly a competency they've had to have for a long time. Hey everyone, John Giorso here. I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. I wanted to let you know that this episode has been brought to you by Orca Pacific, the agency I founded to help brands succeed on the Amazon platform. If you need any services that relate to success on the platform, whether it be content, advertising, SEO, help on the back end when it comes to operational support, etc., feel free to reach out to our team. The best way to get in touch with us is on LinkedIn. And with that, we'll get back to the show. So switching gears a little bit, but kind of staying in the large CPG lane, where do you think direct to consumer should fit in terms of their overall strategy?
Interesting. You have to do it. It's got to have a place, and even if it's a place of test and learn. And I think coming from my background, my experience has been there's a lot of overthinking when it comes to D2C because it is so new, and it's like CPGs, especially big ones, have never before D2C have had that really direct consumer touch point, right? And so it's so interesting to them and everyone wants to be involved. And that has had its own, political sagas of, is it IT versus marketing versus sales? But I think now with the advent of, Shopify and, these really turnkey solutions to just throw something up and try it and see what happens. And, I think that's the way to go. But that said, it always becomes this like, okay, well, what's the sales? What's the ROI?
Yeah.
What's the, and it's at the end of the day, it's actually, even for startup brands, some of them are very D2C and that's their core sales channel. But some of them are really looking at it from it as an insights perspective to make sure they know who their consumer is so that their media is more effective, whether that be for D2C or whether that be marketplaces, whether that be Sephora.com or Ulta or in-store. They're using whatever they collect in D2C to really, increase the ROI of their investments in other channels. And so the data is really, really valuable. And so I think for a lot of these CPGs who haven't done it before, the more you're like, well, let's just put it up and test it. Nothing's going to blow up. Nothing's going to go wrong. You have to do it. You have to put your brand assets, make sure equity shines through. But there's a lot of tools out there even now that you can turn a non-shoppable D2C site into a pretty shoppable D2C site pretty easily nowadays. It doesn't take too much depth work. But I would say, don't overthink it and jump right in and see what kind of data you get and try to leverage that data. And if it ends up being that consumers really wanted that kind of offering, go for it. I know different CPGs have tested, I think it was Pepsi even launched a D2C during COVID, if I found it was Pepsi or Coca-Cola. And I think it's interesting, this idea of it's easier for CPGs to do things when they're grouped together. Right. So even J&J, we had this platform called Healthy Essentials, and that's what we just called all of our brands. So we had this idea of just turning all of our brands into the shop, but what consumer is going to randomly, it's such a random brand. I don't know if you agree, John, but it's I don't know, I've seen it happen before. And so just being a little careful with that. I mean, I would recommend personally trying to have it be as brand specific as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think this is kind of a super interesting, I think, just point of debate in our industry right now, because I mean, I understand the idea that you want to own the customer. So you should build a direct to consumer site so you can have that data directly. Makes sense. You're not going to get, or at least you're not going to get as much as you want from the walled gardens, you know, the Amazon and Googles of the world. Where I struggle is how do you do that at scale, not just pure scale, but how do you do that in a representative way? For example, like there's been some direct to consumer activations where you're doing like custom M&Ms and stuff like that. Great, super cool. Like I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
But you're also then kind of getting somewhat biased data because you're only engaging with your absolutely biggest fans, which like you can learn from that for sure. But is that actually representative of someone who's, you know, going to be at a 7-Eleven and grab a pack of M&Ms versus a pack of whatever and, you know, throw it on the counter, which is much more sort of realistic representation of your average consumer? And I think like, you know, the idea that like Kraft is going to have, you know, craftmacaroniandcheese.com and someone's going to go on there and like purchase a 3-pack of macaroni and cheese, like that obviously makes no sense. You have to do something in CPG that's like unique, that's going to, you know, the customer's going to have to go out of their way basically to engage with your direct to consumer site. So and like, I'm just asking questions. I don't have the answers to this, but I think it's a really interesting, like, I get that brands are playing around with this, but at some point, if you try to go to mass market, you're just trying to replicate your retail partners, and that's not going to work. Like the example you used where it was just, well, we sell all of our brands on one place. Well, yeah, but so does CVS. So why not just, you know, go there or Amazon or Target or wherever. So I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
No, you nailed it. I think you nailed it. I think it's having this realistic idea in your mind of like, who is going to be that person that would shop at the site? And is it scalable? But should it be?
Yeah.
Should it be scalable? Or should it really be like a brand.com where people understand, you know, about your brand, maybe about your manufacturing process, maybe around your giving? Like, I don't know, maybe Kraft has done something for children in some city and you want to highlight that, and really building that brand equity. Maybe it's a UGC stream of people who do fun things with macaroni. I don't know. I thought that's a great example, but really just have it be your brand platform. And yeah, you might shop like maybe some special back to school packs or some, you know, special bundles or something, or, you know, some kind of cool donation campaign you want to do on your site. I think you nailed it. I think it's just being realistic around how much money you really want to put behind it. And so that's what I'm saying is like, I've seen a lot of money being put behind D2C, not just at J&J, but even other places. And, you know, and then there's a lot of disappointment, right? Of like, where was the ROI? It was a failure. And it's like, no, it actually wasn't a failure. It just had very high expectations.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You need to look at it more like a, you know, a pop-up store in Times Square, less like the next Walmart. You know, that you're
that's a great example.
Yeah. So I agree. I think that's where probably there's a miss and where there's disappointment. Like, yes, direct to consumer can be massive if you're selling a mattress, you know, and it's a once in 10 years, $800 purchase.
Yeah.
But that's just never going to make sense for, you know, $3.99 products that you're buying twice.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Super interesting. What do you think? This is a big question, so maybe I'll pare it down a little bit. But paid media on Amazon, obviously, kind of table stakes at this point as a brand to be participating in this. But any kind of, you know, looking crystal ball next 2 or 3 years, any big kind of dynamics that you're looking out for, changes that you're anticipating, things you're excited about, weary about, any of that?
Yeah, I think from what I saw and had purview to at my time at Publicis was a little bit to where the future was going, which is why working at agency has its perks. I think more and more the shopper marketing is going to be a bigger percentage of the media pie for whether you're a big or small brand. As at least if you're omnichannel, it's shopper marketing. I would even count Amazon media search, Walmart media search. That's shopper marketing. It's digital, but it's shopper marketing. I think more and more retailers will start to play nice in the sandbox, because they will start to, the wars between Facebook, Google, and shopper marketing, it will never end. And Google now launching a marketplace, they're now got a horse in the race, and it's so that'll be interesting to see. But I think retailers will start to, I think more and more CPGs will push for a holistic view of their consumer, and will go to their retailers to do it. As retailers have an incentive to negotiate for more dollars, they will say, well, what do you need back in order to give me more dollars so that I can be just as big as Google and Facebook in your media pie? And I think CPGs will say, data. Like, I want to identify somehow who's come to my website. Did they convert on Walmart, or did they convert on Amazon? Is my Amazon shopper buying this pack size on Amazon and this other pack size at Target? And does that change my messaging? And is my consumer different, and how? And I think a little bit of that is coming. Amazon did publicly release their Amazon Marketing Cloud tool. Now, how widely they have and how much that's being used, and what's that evolving into. I think what I've learned is Amazon, AWS and Amazon retail has been very separate. So Amazon's so big, and there's such a startup culture that they've had this incredible AWS platform of machine learning and AI. They've had AMG, Amazon Media Group, so it's separate from them. And then finally, I think last year they were like, why don't they work together and actually we leverage this to actually help us here? And I think that's starting to happen. I think that's really exciting. I think Amazon will make a play probably to, again, play nice in the sandbox and create this kind of walled garden where you could import data where Amazon can't view it, and you can import data from other, whether that be Oracle, and you can purchase other data and try to match it demographic wise. You can put your anonymized retailer purchase data in there and really start to do some sophisticated analytics to understand your LTV across, of your customers across retailers, which I don't think anyone's done before. So as a CMO, it's never been a more exciting time. Also, though, you're the guinea pig putting together the wirings for these things. So I think even Amazon and their marketing cloud and the folks that are, rolling that out at Amazon, even they're like, well, what are the use cases you need this for? What should we build this? How should we build this? What should we do? What should it be? And it's a good thing. I'll say it's a really, really good thing that they're being so open-minded to take feedback. But also as a CMO, it's your pressure to figure it all out overnight tomorrow. And so being very poignant about how you're prioritizing things and the first things you want to chase and the use cases of what to chase first. I think that's where the strategy comes into play. But what I really love is kind of where this kind of the collaboration will come from retailers sharing data to Amazon and Google even, and see how people will start to play nice in the sandbox so that all boats rise. That's kind of where I see it going in general from a paid media perspective in the shopper world.
Yeah, wow, that was a fascinating answer to that question. I think the sort of inherent assumption around data with a lot of these platforms has kind of been you get what you get, and it's we provide this, we don't provide this, and that's like a fixed thing. It's not negotiable. It's out of your control as a brand. But I agree. I think especially with with the large brands where it's kind of worth from the platform side, maybe some flexibility. Marketing cloud, and we'll see what else comes out over the next couple of years.
Totally. This got kind of swept under the rug a little bit. Maybe it was the what's happening in Washington with the big tech companies, but Walmart released very recently a tool to measure your omni-channel impact of your media, which is incredible. I mean, it's something CPGs have wanted. It's like almost a pipe dream that now is a reality. And I haven't seen, I'm sure there are some folks out there that have been all over this, but I don't think it's getting enough credit as it's due. What Walmart has released is incredible because it's a real play for media dollars. It's a real play because it used to be Walmart media, the conversion on Walmart.com, if you really look at it just like that, you would never run another Walmart media campaign. And you would say, why am I spending all this money? it's not converting. And so but there was no way to measure the full omnichannel impact before. You would have to do, all sort of like lift studies, and Walmart didn't want to get in that game. It wasn't scalable for them. They're actually trying to be more lean in their media operation and their resourcing. And so I don't know how accurate it is. I would love, as a follow-up, for any CPGs to comment on this video or talk about it.
Yeah.
If it's accurate, or how they're liking it. But I don't sit in a seat where I can see that data. But I think it's going to be really interesting, because now that they've done it, it'll just pressure Target Media Network probably to do the same, and others. So yeah, really bullish on that kind of omni-channel view, and I think more CPGs will be pushing for that, or creating their own technologies to figure that out.
Sure. Yeah. That's fascinating. So kind of maybe last topic here, and it's another big one. What are your thoughts on marketplaces? I mean, obviously there's some big ones. We all know who they are. There's kind of some interesting things happening with Shopify and with some other people that are kind of maybe getting more into the marketplace game. But where do you see this going over the next few years?
Yeah, I have a stance. Also proven by the fact that I, joined Pharmapacks, so super bullish on marketplaces. But my stance is that the future of brands, like many brands, and there was a really great article that Kiri Masters put out on Forbes recently on like luxury beauty and Amazon, and how, brands used to not even think about touching it with a 10-foot pole, and now are considering it, or even on the platform. And I do believe the future will be just distribution on wherever you can get distribution, obviously being somewhat strategic and making sure you're not in marketplaces that just don't fit your demographic or your customer base. That's obviously true. But I think it will be seen as just needing to be everywhere. You kind of just need to be everywhere. I'm talking about even Rakuten and Wish, not just the Walmarts and the Target marketplaces. It's these, smaller kind of marketplaces that exist. And I think more marketplaces will even come up. I think it'll be interesting, like these niche marketplaces, and I think dropship. I think that capability of dropship is, any brands that have that capability and can just proliferate on multiple marketplaces will be in a really good position. And so yes, that's what I just think it's going to get better and better. Obviously, the marketplace experience, I personally believe, will become, the newer guys will do it a little better than the historically, right? That said, Amazon knows who they are. They're the everything store. They want all the assortment. Obviously, they want sellers that are compliant, and they're not rogue sellers or selling any black market items. That's always going to be the case. But Walmart, I think, also has welcomed many sellers to their marketplace. Maybe not as many as Amazon, but has welcomed many. I think the Shopify integration is going to increase that number very quickly. I think there's going to be a lot more sellers on Walmart as Amazon and Walmart really are competing. Target has taken such a different stance. Target has been very curated in how they've gone about this. So, not as many sellers, not all categories are part of their marketplace program. They're rolling it out very thoughtfully. And I think that will behoove them, as, they don't, trying to beat Amazon at their own game, and Walmart, it's not going to work. So Target, but I think that will continue as more marketplaces emerge. I think they'll be niche. There'll be a marketplace for bulk goods. There'll be a marketplace for just beauty, indie beauty, and that's already there. There's Grove Collaborative and other kind of these sites that are really curation sites of different kind of brands. But I think more and more that the marketplaces will become a viable business model, and seen as less of the Wild West. And eBay was always like the Wild West. And but I think marketplaces that really maintain curation and maintain this like fun discoverability. That's the thing about both Amazon and Walmart, right? You don't go there to discover and window shop. You go there, you know what you want, you go there, you shop. Target's done a little bit of a better job in creating like a more discoverability experience, but who's actually done a really good job, and they don't get a lot of credit, is Wish. Wish is like, and when I first heard of Wish, I'm like, oh my God, what is this? It's like, everything's like, under $5, all this random stuff, but they've gotten a lot more sophisticated about the algorithms. that they put around what they provided to you. They have gotten better about their assortment. So now their assortment isn't all like, random stuff. It's a little, you see some brands on there that you're like, this brand's on Wish. Okay. I think that's one to watch, I would say. Wish is one to watch.
That's super interesting. Yeah. Wish is one of those marketplaces that just for how big they are like super under the radar still. Even in our industry, a lot of people don't know who they are, and they do. I don't know. I mean, it's like tens of billions or 10 billion at least.
They're doing a lot. They're doing a lot. And Alibaba, Alibaba, you can't have a conversation on marketplaces without Alibaba. I mean, their foray and entrance into the US market will be fascinating. I love to keep an eye on these things. Like I said, just holding the popcorn and watching things as they kind of unfold, and just keeping tabs on things. But that'll be definitely one to watch. Yeah, absolutely. You said kind of one thing in the mix there, which I think is really important, which is that having a dropship capability for and even for the CPG guys. I mean, I think if I was running a big CPG right now, I would be building out a massive global owned scaled dropship capability, because I think, right now, maybe they're just trying to figure out kind of Walmart marketplace and Amazon marketplace, and they're kind of maybe focused on that and maybe even a little bit behind. But to your point, I think what they're maybe not seeing is that this is about to get super fragmented. And just like you want to make sure that if you're craft, you have an ability, or at least at minimum a partnership, to go make sure that in the little bodega on the corner, your product is still in stock and at the right place and at the right price. And that's not just a big partner to big partner thing. You've got to have, other partners and capabilities internally. And that's a lot of work and time and effort that goes into building that. I think that will be a huge differentiator over the next 5 years. Where you're going to have these players may be small or mid-sized, but added up, it's going to be a huge channel on its own. So exactly, that's the way to think about it. It's a whole channel that's emerging, that's really only just getting started. As even retailers, they want to take less inventory. They're getting very lean. They're actually leaning more on their sellers, right, in the third-party marketplaces for revenue and assortment and inventory. So totally agree. It'll be interesting to see what CPGs end up investing in that capability at scale. Yeah, we shall see.
Yeah, we will. Hey, I want to be respectful of time here, Aisha. But before we go, how do people connect with you? How do they learn more about what you're up to?
Yeah, thank you. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm all over it. LinkedIn.com/eCommerce queen is my hashtag, is my URL. So feel free to connect with me. I'll connect with anyone. My email address, if you want to reach me, is Aisha@Pharmapacks.com. So feel free to reach out if you have any ideas or want to talk more. I'm very open to connecting. And thank you so much, John and team, for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much for being on. Thanks again for listening to another episode of eCommerce Deep Dive. Be sure to subscribe to your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. And if you get a chance, go in and leave us a rating. It would help a lot. Thanks again, and talk to you soon.